So yeah, one face that I have not met, of course I met you, Renee, down here at the end. Eric, okay, so I spoke to you on the phone. Yeah. Okay, so nice to meet you, Eric. Yeah, so all right, so the way that we're gonna do today is we've got a portion of the conversation where we're kind of gonna do a little bit of agile overview and just kind of give you guys some background on some of the principles and some of the philosophies around the agile mindset of what's necessary to kind of move forward. And that kind of serves as a backdrop going into the findings that we have, right? So we're looking at your organization, assessing your ability to make this transformation, looking to see what kind of issues there might be, trying to gauge the maturity of your organization kind of on the early portions of it, and then taking all that information to kind of help us formulate a plan, which we kind of started the stubs of as a part of this presentation, of the next steps that we would take to move forward with transforming the organization, become more agile. So as we're talking today, there are two things that I'm going to need from the group as actions. The first thing is someone has to be what we call the product owner. And so that's a term from Agile. And basically what that means is we need someone from this group who owns what it means to be Agile for Publix. That's going to be important because, again, that person is kind of helping set the vision, helping drive the changes, as well as helping, kind of support what will eventually be a team of people, which is an Agile transformation team, kind of that steering committee to kind of guide it through the organization. So that's the first thing. The second thing is for you specifically, as we look at moving forward, having some sort of a cadence where I can connect with you either like bi-weekly, once a month, 15 to 30 minutes, where we're just able to touch base and I'm able to kind of communicate with you with some issues that or things that might be related specifically to someone that you know. So just be thinking about, how that can work. It could be virtual, it could be on the phone, conference call, video chat, whatever the case is. Right? So just those are the two things that you need you guys to kind of think about as we go on with space time. So again, first we're going to do the overview. Then we're going to talk about the approach that we took for the assessment. We're going to talk about the behaviors that we investigate, the findings, the next steps, and then questions. Feel free, of course, if you have any questions throughout, to just ask those questions and we'll address them. If there's anything that comes up that's squirrely or we might talk about later or something like that, then I'll kind of mention that. So, why Agile and what does it mean for leaders, right? So, we talk about Agile, you probably have heard a whole bunch of different coin terms. You've got a perception of what it actually means. And so what we're talking about in actuality is putting the organization in a place where A, they are taking risk in smaller increments, right? So we're talking about, from a development standpoint, we talk about iterative development. So that is, we have a plan about what it is that we want to do, we want to accomplish, and then we break that plan up into small chunks, and then we deliver that plan such that we can receive feedback from the pieces that we're delivering so that we can inform our future activities, again, driving towards our solution. And so making the business agile is just that, setting the mindset of the organization so that they can look at breaking big pieces of work down into smaller pieces and then delivering that in a consistent way. And so why adopt an agile mindset? Well, when we look at, C. Prime had a survey, State of Agility survey from 2015. Main reason that people say they want to adopt agile, which is I think one of the things you guys said as well, is you want to accelerate product delivery, right? You want to do more faster, right? Get things out the door a little bit quicker. Also, you see enhance the ability to manage changing priorities. So again, we live in a real world where things change on a weekly, daily basis. And so we want to, as organizations, be able to be responsive to those things, especially if there are things that impact our business and our ability to generate the things that we want to accomplish. Again, setting the organization up so they can have that type of a structure in place. Increase productivity, enhance software quality, enhance delivery predictability. All these are the types of things that are built into Agile as a framework. and again, setting all of those practices in place. A lot of things that we talk about that we do, that we'll be working with you guys to learn, are practices that accomplish the same task that you may actually be doing today. It's just doing it in a way to have more synergy, to have more transparency, and to have more collaboration with the folks, so that, again, that's where the wins come from as an organization, by being lockstep with them. So what are the barriers? What are some of the things that keep people from moving forward? Well, the largest thing is Cumberland's philosophy of culture is at odds with the core Agile values, right? So a lot of times you go into organizations, and I think we even heard it when we came here, we talked about failing fast. Like, that's one of the big things that people used to say about Agile. And just as a whole, across the industry, companies said, we don't like the whole term of failing fast. It doesn't feel good to us. And so, again, what is the thing that we're trying to accomplish? We're developing a different mindset. We're looking at new ways to get work done, as well as new ways for collaborating and working with one another. What's so new about it? The biggest part is that for the my entire career in software delivery, 20 plus years, it's been the business and IT, and there were handoffs between the two organizations. If not, they were throwing things over the wall, to us in IT to kind of get things done. So now the big thing that we're going to be doing going forward is collaboration and having that involvement on a consistent basis to make sure that we are getting things. So what else? Lack of experience with Agile methods, lack of management support. And again, how does that come in? Not so much from the standpoint of managers not wanting to support their employees, but more from the standpoint of not changing the existing policies or practices that are not in alignment with Agile. So, how are people compensated, how are bonuses, how are rewards, how people receive praise or recognition, right? Going from being more individual-based to more team-based and things of that nature. Lack of business, customer product owner. This is the big one, which is why I asked at the top of this conversation to have someone that will be the product owner for what Agile is for Publix, because that's a big part of it. Right? We go into organizations and they don't know who's the person who's setting the vision for the pieces of work that have to be delivered. And so that's something that, again, you guys might have to figure out as well. I mean, is that somebody that's coming out of the IS department? Is that someone that's currently in the business part of the organization? Typically, those are some of the things that, again, companies struggle with, creating that role, as well as developing the competencies for that role, right? Because, again, that product owner is a combination of a business analyst and project manager, and so they have to be able to, deliver software. And then the rest of the things kind of trail off a little bit after that. So, who are the Agile leaders? So that's basically you folks here sitting in the room. So you got managers to executives, you got product and technical, you have a product owner and scrum master. And how do you guys contribute, right? Providing the vision, establishing guidance, expectations, prioritization, right? Not everything can be top priority, right? There was a client that I was working with up until recently. Their annual goals were 1, 1B, and 3, because they didn't want to say something was number 2. Number 2 was just as important as number 1. So, I mean, literally, as a company goal, they had 1, 1B, and 3, right? And so people are like, I don't understand what that means, right? How can you have 2 things that are number 1 and 1 just be labeled with B, and it's supposed to mean something other than it takes a second place from a priority standpoint? That's a big thing as well. What's required? WIP limits, work in process. So again, big thing that we'll be talking about is throughput versus capacity, right? Making sure that we're using our resources properly, using people properly, not overloading them. Understanding the relationship between business performance and delivery. So again, that's another aspect of it. The things that we do in technology are supposed to enable and support our business. And so therefore, our work efforts should tie to something that is creating revenue, reducing costs, or things of that nature. And so being able to understand the relationship between what we're creating in IS and IT and how the business is using and leveraging it and getting a better understanding of that allows us to do a better job from a development standpoint to make sure that we're learning and pushing forward. And then supporting experimentation, right? So again, not talking about failing fast anymore, but talking about shortening the time box between when we release something to the public, right? Public market, exploring it, and then getting that feedback so we can modify the rest of our plan. So again, a culture of experimentation is one of the big things that we look at pushing when we talk about working with different organizations. Avoiding micromanagement. So again, empowering teams, allowing teams to self-organize. Again, this is something that is required in order to be successful. Again, there are guidelines around this, right? It's not the wild, wild west and everybody gets to run off and do their own thing. But we come up with working agreements. We come up with patterns. We come up with different approaches that we think work for the particular organizations. And then we test them, right? We try this group. We see how they can follow these working agreements and stand up their teams and they don't have any issues, then we can extend that to the rest of the organization. Or if we need to make tweaks or revisions, then we'll do that, right? So it's just taking that type of approach with everything that we do from the organization going forward, so that we can enable empowerment and self-organization. Now, the other thing is that we talk about becoming agile, right? The benefits of the transformation will start to happen quickly, but there also is a large extent of, again, this is an organizational change. And so as a result of that change, it is going to impact the productivity of the people that are involved, right? So when we start talking about what is that change process, I mean, you see very quickly, very easily in this diagram, if performance is raising, right, as soon as the change comes in, there's a tip in productivity, right? Because again, this is the current line. And then eventually, once people feel comfortable with what's going forward, then of course they'll start to speed up. So thinking about it like this. Anyone ever had to cook a dish, bread, first time and you were following a recipe, right? So I used to do Blue Apron. I don't know you guys familiar with that. It's a mail order cooking where they send you the food and the recipes. But the first time I used that Blue Apron, it was really difficult because I had to read all of the instructions. I had to, dice this, chop that. I had to look up some of the terms because they were using cooking terms and things of that nature. It just took me a long time to fix my meal, right? Eventually, about 2 or 3 weeks in, it became more familiar with me. I understood some of the patterns, right? If it was this type of a dish, then they would have this type of skills that were required in order to do it. And eventually I got to the place where I could get the dinner done in 20 minutes, like they said on the card, versus the hour and a half that it would take me. Well, that's because it took me a while to get familiar with the new patterns and new activities for cooking that meal. I know how to cook. I cook all the time, but again, following it in this new practice was something that I had to learn. And so that's what's going to happen with your organizations and with your team. You're going to have to take that time to become familiar. In addition to that, we talk about the 4 stages, Tugman's 4 stages of becoming an effective team. As you put these teams together and we start to form them, they go through these stages, forming, norming, and performing. And until they get to the performing stage, again, that's growth activities that team is going through. And so as leaders, we have to understand and be patient as the teams, again, start to get a better understanding of their new norm, okay? Yeah, we're getting it's coming up. I'll do this last slide, and then I'll go ahead and skip forward if you guys want to do that. So the other thing that we talked about, and I mentioned it earlier, is utilization versus throughput. Currently, in a lot of organizations, we talk about making sure that we are utilizing, right? Maximizing, for example, the highway, right? So you got all of the cars on it. This interstate is fully utilized. However, it's not helping. No one is moving. There's no activity. This is high throughput. They've got work coming through the system, right? Moving at a sustainable pace, right? Because again, speed limit, things of that nature. Over here, they can move at it. So again, we want to make sure we're thinking about throughput versus versus utilization from a capacity standpoint. And then again, speeding up delivery, again, not overstuffing people. So again, whip limits, making sure that we're giving people time, because again, we work at a capacity as thought leaders, right? I mean, we're knowledge workers. And so believe it or not, if we have time to think, that allows us and affords us the ability to come up with some of the best solutions and things of that nature. So again, pushing that as activities. So at the request of Steve, I will move, skip ahead a couple of slides. So I will start with the results. So the objective was, from the target outcome of the organizational discovery event, was the goal was to help us, C-Prime and Publix, right, gain an understanding of the current level of agile maturity, organizational workflow, organizational change tolerance behavior. Sample size used for this assessment was only a hint, because again, you guys have 1,200 employees in your IS, associates in your IS department. We talked to roughly 50. Yeah. And so just saying that that's an example of what that is. As it relates to the approach, we talked to technology staff. So again, we have 30-minute group agile maturity assessment interviews. That's with tech leads, scrum masters, product owners, product leadership. We also talked to technology leaders. There was 45-minute one-on-one interviews. And so that was actually with Steve, you, Renee, Eric, and some other folks, right? You guys fall into that. Business stakeholders, we did not talk to any, right? That is something that we would like to, if we decide to go forward, as we move forward, to have those conversations. And those business stakeholders are, quote unquote, the customers that you guys service from an IS department. Who are those points of contact in the business side? And then lastly, IT executives, again, at 30-minute one-on-one interviews, discussing organizational culture, active initiatives, things like that. So again, we have those conversations. This just goes more into that. Fast facts. So again, 4 executive interviews, 5 senior leadership interviews, and 45 survey participants. So roughly 50 people that we spoke with. And here are the things that we actually investigated, right? So we looked at, again, how is your organization as it relates to being organized around value? Understand the value stream, or if there are any that exist. Lean Agile portfolio management funding. Again, with Agile, there comes a different approach for funding projects that's more lean. Again, we didn't really explore that a lot, because that's something that Christian and the guys have indicated that wasn't really on the table for this part of the transformation. Talked about sustainable pace. Looked at, again, what are some of the delivery metrics, team goal, incentives, impediment resolutions, self-organized cross-functional teams, culture of experimentation, DevOps automation, kind of understanding if you guys have anything in place, what's your desire around that, architecture runways, incremental planning, daily collaboration, continuous improvement, and then executive change management. So all of these are the different behaviors that exist in an Agile environment. And so our findings were as follows. So first, the desired behavior was value stream organizational structure. What did we find? We saw that silo structure still dominated the organization, only a few teams in operation. What are the things that we heard? One quote, and I highlighted the part that was there's resource scarcity to dedicate towards Agile adoption. So someone feels like, okay, we're trying to move to Agile, but we don't have enough resources available. So again, that's just again a point of information. Why is this important? When we look at value-based delivery, it leads to faster learning, shorter time to market. So again, you think about when we talk about organizing around value streams, we think about aligning the organization like a factory assembly line, if you will. So making sure that all of the pieces kind of line up in the end. removing all of the waste out of the system so that things can move a lot more faster, as well as teaching the people that are in that system how to communicate with one another and collaborate with one another differently, so that, again, there's more transparency, more collaboration, more cohesiveness, and again, higher quality because you're having shorter conversations and you're leaving the decisions for small decisions that as it relates to getting that product out the door with that team, right? So that's the main thing behind that. Again, lean agile portfolio management funding. We're kind of gonna put that on pause, right? Even though it's here. Incremental planning. So again, what we found, a shorter planning process will reduce misalignment, the frequency of changes and delays by speeding up decisions. So again, within your organization, you guys, there's feedback that your planning processes take too long, and as a result of that, things are getting lost, right? Things are dropping through the cracks. And that happens. That's called being people, right? So again, some additional costs. Current project is 5-year, fixed cost, fixed scope. Again, that's a whole lot of predicting into the future is what this person is saying, right? 5-year project with a fixed cost, fixed cost. That's a lot of effort to maintain and manage that over that length of time period. So that might feel like, difficult to do. Recent years has been more flexibility and we're getting closer, but being able to manage work at a product backlog level, but still has a fit into traditional waterfall funding controls. So again, that's just more feedback around people are trying to explore and experiment, and they're running into the existing bureaucratic structure of the organization, which makes sense because the organization hasn't made changes to accommodate, right? Self-organized cross-functional teams. So again, we found that there are grassroots efforts that in Eric's group, right? A lot of grassroots efforts going through the organization. Again, management has tight control over decisions. Teams are trying to be agile. Teams are encouraged to deliver more quickly without being empowered, right? So again, that's a big one, right? Hey, go out, be more productive, make quick decisions, be more agile, but the existing structure of the organization limits that, right? So again, your existing policies and practice limit that, and it makes sense, right? All right, going to the next page. So culture of experimentation. So proof of concept, software evaluation efforts are encouraged and are changing, right? That's what we found. And then from a quote standpoint, so, a lot of the feedback that we got was that experimentation is not allowed, right? So one of the main things that we heard was when people were saying if you, do something and your judgment has to be evaluated, then you're evaluated through this process called a debrief. And the feedback that we got was that was a scary process, right? Why this matters? Again, when we talk about culture of experimentation, why is that important? Innovation is the key to remaining competitive. Future is uncertain, right? Because again, we don't all have, no one has a crystal ball that they can say exactly how something is going to go. And so as a result of that, we need to feel comfortable doing iterative development and doing small experiments, evaluating, finding that truth, and then using that feedback to kind of drive us going. Next is sustainable pace. So what we found, teams are willing to accept more work despite their current workload, which increases risk to deliver milestones and quality. So again, this is a big one, right? People are people. We like to please. That's how we're wired for the most part. So as executives, as leaders, when you're asking associates about things, they very easily translate that into additional work and volunteer to do it, right? As well as, we may be getting asked about additional projects or things of that nature. And again, because we want to be seen as someone valuable, we'll accept that additional work. Well, we've got to kind of rethink how we want to do this going forward and managing the flow of work and demand of work from one source. And so that's, again, some of the aspects of it, right? Highlighted part here, one of the quotes, engineers are being overutilized, right? So again, if someone feels like, they don't have enough time to get all of their work done because they got too much on their plate. And even if it's not true, quote unquote, that they don't have a lot on their plate, perception is reality, right? So again, how can we create an environment? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about changing the environment to be something that reflects, again, more agility. Why is this important from a sustainable base standpoint? The emphasis should be on completing existing work and adding this value before starting the next thing, right? So again, finish what you start, right? My mom used to say that to me all the time, and I didn't understand it until I became older. Finish the work that you have now, because otherwise you'll just have 3, 4, 5 unfinished projects that you're working on. And then, of course, again, as humans, it's difficult for us to context switch. We don't really multitask. And, you know, the more things age, the more we forget about them, the excitement we had around them. Because again, we're talking about knowledge work, right? So we're not just banging on widgets or making things, we're actually using our brain. Continuous improvement. Organization is mostly open and receptive to new ideas and change, with department leaders pushing as many concepts as leadership enables. So again, that's good, right? You guys are open to doing change. And that's evident because again, you've got groups that are already trying to be more agile inside of your organization. And so why is this important? Having a culture of continuous improvement translates into improved quality, reduce costs, simplify work processes, less waste, and improve customer satisfaction. So again, looking at having these conversations, making the pieces of work smaller, having the workflow be consistent, having collaboration with the people who the work are going to be satisfying, making that connection with the customer. All of that gets us to the place where we're producing high quality work in a sustainable pace in an environment that people feel like they are respected and connected to. So this one, last two are going to be executive change management. So what we found, the organization feels as if everything is changing and there is an opportunity to implement consistent organizational change management practices across all IS departments. Again, there are some efforts to make changes. There are change management practices in place. Are they consistent? Are they appearing the same way? We didn't see where that was the case, right? There was evidence that there was an opportunity there, right? So what are some of the quotes that came up? VPs have 10 different visions and they are all top priorities. So again, there's someone saying there's a change management situation where there's an opportunity to do some alignment, right? Vision is sometimes communicated from the top down, however, often gets muddled. So again, over communicating the vision, right? Talking about what it is that we're trying to accomplish, making sure that people understand how the work that they're doing ties into satisfying that business. So again, that's something that comes through this process when we start talking about building out the ethics at the executive level for the work that we're trying to do that satisfy those corporate objectives. And again, those ethics break down into the features and stories that the teams are now eventually going to be implementing. Other one is strategy sometimes gets lost during the project life cycle due to time. So again, feeling like the lapse of time creates a loss of focus. And so again, as humans, the longer something goes on, we get bored with it, we lose interest in it, right? We have to figure out ways to kind of stay reconnected to it. And so this kind of happens, right? We don't necessarily think it's all the change management aspect, but again, it's about re-galvanizing the group, right? Re-energizing the group on a consistent and regular basis. So why this matters? Focus is a requirement for optimization. There should be one clear vision to which the organization maps all into. So we understand that clear vision, we align all the different activities that aim from a transformation standpoint, right? So we had a call last week, talking with the project team and talking to them about understanding what the goals are for Publix for 2020. And reason why we asked for something like that is because in order for us to make sure that the transformation activities align to those goals and to communicate that to the teams that are going to be making those changes so that they understand the value of what they're doing. right? Because again, value translated into my direct activities turns my activities into importance. And then therefore that allows us to again move towards a more unified, as a unified group to get things accomplished. Just a little bit more, and then we move into the risk assessment. So, executive change management. Again, agile adoption has been entirely grassroots so far, which is what we, again, are finding, with some middle managers engaging and learning the value of lean agile working methods. So again, this stuff. There's still a lot of pushback from upper management to allow agile process to work, because again, there needs to be an agreed approach, right? So again, if it's grassroots, that makes sense that that's the case. Agile adoption is one of the directives for our department. However, all agile concepts have been met with suspicion, and only sometimes they have been given a fair shot. Again, I see that as education, right? Again, educating people, helping them understand the value, and again, how it ties back to the vision and mission of the organization, right? So now that I'm asking you to make this change and you understand why it's important to the vision and goals, you're more acceptable, right? And that's another thing too. One of the processes that we do, it's the change management framework. And I think, Melanie, you guys told me you guys use ADCAR as well here. No? ADCAR? And so that's just an abbreviation. It's a change management practice similar to like John Carter's 8 steps. And so ADCAR, it stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And so through all of the changes, we go through those steps. Awareness, making people aware, understanding what it is that we're talking about, right? Why is it important? If we can make sure they understand why it's important, it creates a desire, which is, okay, this is important. I want to make sure that I'm doing something that's valuable. Therefore, I want to do this important thing. There's a desire, right? Then after that, we talk about, the ability, right? And so we talk about training the folks, coaching them along so they can kind of get up to speed on the ability, right? Through the knowledge, ability, and then reinforcement is the last R. We actually make sure that we're doing activities, leave behinds, repositories, things of that nature to make sure you can sustain the changes that we put in place, right? Through the knowledge and then the coaching. Any questions about those before I talk about this? No. So this is again, organizational attributes. So risk assessment result, right? So what exactly is this? When we look at an organization that's your size, right? We go, all right, you guys are pretty big, right? We're talking about 1,200 people roughly in your IS department that we'll be changing. If you guys only stop at IS, if you guys decide to go further into the business, it could be larger, right? Whatever. So we look at that, and we look at the types of changes that we're making or that will be happening as a result of this. Those types of changes include changing people's job responsibilities, changing how they interact, still doing the same type of work, which is delivering software, right? But again, the practices and the steps that we're going to be asking you to do are going to feel different. And so because of the number of people, the things that we found as relates to your current communication practices and people's alignment to strategy and the vision, that you guys fall, not, again, from a number of things, characteristics, a lot of things will be changing as a result of this transformation, right? And then your change readiness is not so bad as well, because again, you guys have a lot of good things going for the organization that, people tie into it, right? People buy into it. It's a family for them, right? I mean, I was blown away when I got here and you guys, listening to how long you guys have worked together with one another. And like every day, it was like, wow, that's impressive, right? So again, people have a lot of love for the organization and things like that. I think you saw some quotes in some of the findings, some of the results where people like, well, I have stock ownership in the company and I do this, that, and whatever. So people want to do the right thing and what's right for the organization. So when we look at these attributes, what are some of the big things that popped out? So if you guys are, as we are going forward with this change, right? Only 50% of the interviewees said that there is no compelling, there is a compelling and visible business need for change. So something as invasive as a transformation, 100% of people say, I know why we're doing this, right? So again, that's opportunities for communication, that awareness piece and desire piece that we talked about from the ad call. Business interviews feel that there is a unified and widely shared vision. So again, more awareness around that, right? A lot of campaigns let people understand. 50% of interviewees say past changes were managed poorly. So again, looking at how can we solve that? Well, we have, again, you guys are bringing in, so trying to support you with that. And again, educating the rest of the organization on these are the activities that we're going to be undergoing as it relates to the transformation. Let's see, what are some of the high risk? At minimum, again, this change impacted nearly 1,300 people. The amount of process change is substantial. Again, their job roles change, and this is going to require some organizational restructuring, meaning that people are going to be interacting with different people than they were today, right? So that in of itself makes this a very large activity, and so therefore, you know, some of the things that we're going to need from this group are going to be related to those awareness and desire aspect to make sure people are aware and they're creating the desire so they'll want to be engaged fully. And then from there, these are just what are the activities, right? As we talk about implementation roadmap. So, you know, first thing we'll do is we'll look at training. You know, you guys, this team here, start having conversations around identifying the value streams, creating that implementation plan, preparing for the ARC launch, which is the Agile Release Train, actually putting the teams on the train, and then working for a while. So, you know, we've had conversations around, you know, are we going to do a pilot group? Are we going to find somebody who's got a project, right? So that's kind of what we also need you guys to kind of help us. You know your culture best, and you know, is it going to be more efficient if we do something that's tied to a more important piece of work, because if we get the benefits of Agile sooner, it's going to help get this thing completed? Or should we go with something that's lower hanging fruit? Somebody out of, say, Pat's group, because they've been doing Agile for a while, but then it might make sense to kind of infuse them and actually put them on a structured approach. So again, those are some of the things that we're going to need, you know, from you guys kind of going forward, and then we'll develop a rollout plan for how do we go to the next group, next group, next group. Right? And typically, you want to try to do, if you can, a train at a time. And so a train is up to 125 people. Any questions about any of that? Okay.
Because, you know, we've been asked, we do have a big transformation. We need to give people plenty of time to start. Everybody's not starting from scratch and learning how to do this. You probably have 10, 15 teams Agile day on my group. But we saw an opportunity like talking portal. We said, okay, let's get them going, they're doing training. Let's do that. We did that with Settlement Manager. We've done that with Sims. We've done several other things where we saw the opportunity to see all the digital payments that we did. Put that to Renee facing with the news for us. I'm probably not perfectly trying to do it all in the right safe implementation roadmap. But as we see these opportunities come up where we want teams to develop new things and we get them into that, we want to train them how to playbook. So they don't go through all those same things that first teams did. Then all the support teams around them, like the engineering team and that type of thing, we're working a different way. How do we code? We're doing some pilots on that. So it's not like we need a pilot that no one's ever, we're not doing this at all. But that's why I guess I'm struggling just a little bit. So we need to pick a pilot. I guess you're saying we need to pick a pilot with some of the safe implementation roadmap. I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
So okay, no worries. So and again, when I say pilot, that's an
all of that go forward and some teams own packages and they're constrained on the vendor. Well, I can't bring them on, so give me that. such a constraint on what we can do. I'm just trying to understand the big picture perspective. How do we go about doing that?
And as are we, right? So one of the things we had the conversation last week, we were going to try to do some of that conversation tomorrow and the day after. But, we were having scheduling issues to kind of pull people. But we need to do that analysis, right? So we didn't have enough insight to have that download of, what are the things that you're trying to complete for 2020? Where are some of the teams that are the low-hanging fruit, right? Because, again, some of the groups you're describing are low-hanging fruit. And if maybe you don't want to go for those first, maybe you want to go to a completely new group, and that will be a pilot, right? So that group will be doing this brand new thing that we would build, structure with them, work with them, make sure we test it. It works well. Now that we have it and it works well, we can start to roll it out to other groups, right? And so on and so forth. So again, it all depends on approach. It all depends on your culture. It depends on your priorities. It depends on the teams. So it's a lot of what if scenarios that we would collaborate with you guys to kind of quantify, again, what makes the most sense. Some organizations want to do high impact projects first because it has the visibility and everybody's going to want to try to get it done. Some people want to get smaller projects or project teams because if something happens, it's so quiet that nobody would even notice it, right? So again, depends on your appetite as an executive leadership group, because again, we're going to be asking, and the support we're going to need from you is that massive communication. Tons and tons of communication, over communicating to folks so that they can understand what's going on, because once the rumor mills start to spin and things of that nature, and this group is doing, and people start to feel left out and isolated and things of that nature, then it just makes the whole thing become more difficult, right? Because people start creating their own information when they don't have any relevant information. So just, working with you guys to kind of sort through all of that to make a plan initially, and then feedback, right? So we'll do the plan, and we're going to help you implement Agile in an Agile way. We're going to iterate on it so that it makes sense for your organization. And again, it fits within sustainable pace, all the things that we talk about, making sure you're not over-threaded, we're not putting more work on you. Again, let's figure out what that looks like, and then again, coalesce on what that plan is, and then go forward. Because again, for us as consultants, we can do it 6 ways to Sunday. There's tons of different ways that we've done it, and it all works depending on who's the executive leadership supporting it, right? You got someone like Lori at the top supporting and championing it. When she says something needs to happen, everybody on the way down is going to do it, right? If it's, and not to pick on Christian, because Christian's awesome, but Christian comes out of architecture, right? And he says, hey, this is what we're doing for the Agile transformation. Is my group doing this? Am I supposed to be a part of that? I'm not in Christian's group, right? So the message automatically gets distorted simply because of what it came from. And so, again, we just need to work through and sort through those types of things. Or if Lori says, Christian, you are delegated as the transformation leader and announces it to everyone, and then he has full authority, and that's a different conversation as well, right? So again, it just depends on your organization, how do people respond, to your chain of command or things of that nature, right? Did I answer your question? I think I said it depends.
So you talked about being able to I wanted to make sure the teams are okay with that. Clint and I, as well as our team, disappears for a while. You can maintain yourself around. Is that also part of that concern?
I'm just having a hard time seeing where we're going with this. I understand Agile, I understand why we need to do it. I understand that we can't do it all at one time. There's lots of points to have to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's new roles on the teams that are doing Agile that we didn't have before. I'm trying to get in my mind how we're going to go about and push this. We can't do everything at once. We've got to do it as we go. We're going to evolve there. It's not a revolution, it's evolution.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to get in my mind how we're going to go about doing that. I've had teams struggle, Alex's team, within the confines of our organization, how to get things done, and that's what we've been talking about.
And I think that's where,
so
from the big picture, I think
that's what we're trying. I think that's what we need.
Right. How do we become an agile party organization? Right? Because we're doing, you're right, the examples you gave, they're doing fine, but they're still sitting inside of a waterfall process.
and they're struggling. And it's how do we transform as a department so it goes from top down versus bottom line? That's how we're doing today. These teams are doing development, they're doing everything.
They're doing
But they're
bottom
still
up.
stuck in this world of it's not me and that.
And that's how we got because we're gonna live in both worlds. We can't live in one world.
But like Clint was saying, the next steps are to start developing those plans. Where do we go from here? Right? So we got a whole bunch of bad news, right? Yeah, we're not great. But where do we go? Where do we kind of tackle first? And what problems are we trying to solve to make sure that we do transform and become right? I mean, that's the next phase of it. Right? We either say we're going to embrace this, and you know, it's a big change. I know it's a big change, and we say, yeah, we're going to. The change is painful. We're going to do it, or we don't do it, and we let the teams do the bottom up and sort of how to do it. Yeah, I think Alex has been very vocal.
One of the talk about here when it comes to trying to implement safe standard framework for all policies. This model that they can
And you know, and this is me picking safe as
Right.
a framework that I think is very prescriptive, training for, and it's multiple versions of this framework. So it's not something that we just cockamamie come up with. It's something that is very structured.
So,
And it lives.
Let me let Alan know.
so part of what we're looking at is that while we do have actively working on using models, if you will, mostly driven based on business sides of the applications, although actively as to everyone else, we have to different requirements. If I try to implement a model that is standard across AS, and that's when we say, okay, let's take some of those people that are using this agile today and pilot implement safe across multiple people that are using it.
Okay.
That's what
Okay,
it
that's
is.
what you're saying. Okay.
And then as we go into this, and we might also pick somebody that is not using agile, still go to the training, go to the approach and others of us, setting up several teams that will start working on this model and to really come across the organization proficient with this.
With this particular work. How does this model differ from Agile?
So at the team level, we're using Scrum. What this gives you is a framework to scale that across a lot of teams over maybe 100 people.
Like same basic principle.
Same thing. At the base, your team is still following Scrum. It's just how do I scale that across? And usually you can get away with Scrum for under 100 people. So I'm wondering.
Is it harder to scale because of the diversity of our teams across development, or because of the infrastructure and middleware teams folding into it? Or development because it's package versus custom, or web versus legacy stuff in mainframe, or is it because our infrastructure is not agile yet? Like, I'm trying to figure out what are the biggest obstacles. Then, I mean, you and I have talked about the challenges for years.
Definitely an obstacle. Probably
You
not.
need a larger cross-functional team.
Yeah, and because I mean, you guys know how I feel about big formal methodologies. To me, they're recipes for disaster. They go on for 5 years, spend a lot of money, and you never have anything. And I don't like heavy process and bureaucracy, right? No, it doesn't work. And so, I mean, I would like to understand from a practical standpoint, we know the types of things that need to change. So whether we use the state framework or whatever, I don't really care. But I mean, I think however we move forward, it needs to be crystal clear at the most granular level, with lowest, programmer level associate. What are we doing? If we say we're implementing safe, I think people just like start nodding off thinking this is going to take an eternity. So I think we have to just be very practical in how we go forward. I mean, the thought of when we start talking about training a team of 125 people and keep going, I mean, that could be 5 years.
There should be some practical reason to do it too.
Right.
Why not,
Yeah. I mean, people don't like change. I mean, I'm not concerned about all the stuff I do. People hate change. I think we need to be able to move faster to deliver value. And if our current structure, our current practices, which I know many of them are an impediment because things have changed, we need to probably, I would list what are the top 10, and I don't care, maybe we have top 10 visions
because we have 10 priorities. I mean, our CEO has 13 priorities this year, right? So we have to be working on 13 priorities. I mean, the world isn't as simple as this is your one priority. I would like to see, what are, from the people that are actually doing it in a world where there's a lot of waterfall, there's a lot of long legacy stuff in place. What are the, whether it's 5 or 10 things that we need to fix immediately, and how would we do that, as opposed to starting with this massive enterprise transformation that just sounds fluffy and I couldn't quantify how long it's going to take, how long it's going to cost, and oh, by the way, is it going to shut down everything we're doing? Because as we go through this transformation, the reason I like the way it's been grassroots is we're changing on projects that are top priorities. I mean, yeah, it's a little painful, but it's not like we're just saying, hey, we're shutting down for a couple of years so we can get to another world. So that would be my, yeah. I mean, I have enough examples of peers of mine in the industry who have tried to transform to Agile with the enterprise, and they never finish. And I go back 3 years ago, one that kicked off in particular, and it never finished because you get this organizational exhaustion when you can't implement something that's tangible fast enough for an organization that's over 1,000. So it's got to be real.
No, that's good. The only thing that I know we've been hearing is as new teams come on, and I know I kind of was working with Pat when he first started bringing in, trying to support it. There's different things that weren't working. Again, we always tried, and I'm sure Eric, you're working through those things as well. But what we heard, is as you start coming on in different teams, is those teams are struggling. And I know that, Pat and his team struggled a little bit as we started off, but we did a lot of training, and we were doing it kind of one-off. And then Alex, you came around, we started kind of doing one-off. Do we want to continue doing that, or is there something that we want to try to, that's what this effort was, to put something in place to try to lay it out so that when we do bring these, every team isn't doing that.
What you described is what I was thinking. I thought this was more about what you call the playbook or training, to package up what Alex has gone through, what Pat has gone through. And now that we've learned so much by you guys paving the way, how can we, if you were going to do it all over again, this is what had to be in place to start with. This is what every member of the team needs to know up front. To me, that's education and training. It's not, this sounds just much more, I don't want to use the word fluffy, but it doesn't sound as tangible of, I'm going to get trained so I can develop a new capability in an agile mode in 2 week sprints. And I think that kind of training and understanding, well, first step is, what are all the obstacles to being able to do that today because the infrastructure aren't there? And how do you make it simple so it's not one-off, it's consistent training for the people that need to do it, but you're certainly not, I wouldn't put people that are supporting a mainframe while we go through modernization on it. We're going to be in a mix of a supply chain. Maybe they'll farms well, but JDA logistics package, you're not going to do a version 12 upgrade in an agile mode. I hope you don't. No, but
on the infrastructure side, the efforts, the core efforts that we have going on right now for modernization is all about alignment and agility for the teams, right? We're getting the automation in so that we can more quickly turn around the environments for these teams, as well as looking at leveraging new application platforms, containers and all. Now, it's going to take time, but that's how we are going to align. Now, in the meantime, there's going to be that kind of gap that we do need to close up. Yeah, right now here are some of the gaps that we have.
I would think the starting point would be to take that, which I know some of you guys have shared, and I think you've shared with your team some of the plans for modernization.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's taking taking it down a level that shows the timing for each of these pads, for the network, the HDI, or, the automation. Where really are we? Is it a test? When's it, and then mapping it to each application piece? When the different layers of the infrastructure that are going to be delivered as a service, when are they available for each of the applications so that it's real to the application? I mean, I think, there can be some overarching part, but it really matters to each team. It's very different for supply chain versus store accounting versus property portal versus settlement manager. And I think that it needs to be more custom. I think if we spend time having some overarching thing for the IT department, it's going to be useless because it doesn't apply to the individual. What do they go? They go hear this nice little presentation and then they leave the room, and what did they go do differently? That's how I feel.
Who's excited that the Scrum is still part of it?
I'm not excited that.
Okay, because the delivery teams, the developers still would follow that agile process.
No, I know.
So that would be very concrete for them.
Well, that to me is through training and Scrum.
Of course, yeah. Because that is a methodology.
Yeah, so when I say tangible, I mean, I think there's a list of every application. Are they going to be developed, or is it going to be using Scrum or not? Or is it going to be, legacy support?
If they're doing customer development.
Yes,
we're moving
no,
them to
yeah,
Scrum.
yes, no. So there needs to be a list of where every team fits. And then what do they need? Day one, do they need training? Okay, what are the obstacles? Every aspect of the infrastructure. We've got package vendors in place. I mean, so we're not going to say how to do it, but I think it's got to be real for people. If we talk about we're going to transform to Agile, I mean, I'm like, so what? I mean, I know how people, that's how I am when I sit in a meeting and hear that kind of dream. To me, that's like a dream. To the person that has to show up every morning in their workspace and deliver something, that doesn't mean anything.
If you could, like you said, ever come to obstacles, but so many customers don't think it's putting off on people's time. We're getting ready, we're finding the solution of how this is all that I put together. Especially after talking about modernization stuff, you can't send every team off in isolation and say, go to Scrum and figure out what you want to do and deliver based on business. Because they don't, other people has to
So it's
put
like,
together.
what do they need? And then what are the obstacles? And like, it's going to be a while until people can take it, automation. So each team needs to know when they can take advantage of it. And so you guys know how to put that together, but I think a much more practical plan of how to use it to deliver software, which is what we do, as opposed to we want to train everyone in the state framework. I would not approach it that way.
It's kind of the playbook. How, when I get started, what do I need to do?
And what does it mean
What does
to
it
each
mean to me?
individual?
And then how do I go about it?
No, Christian, it's very different for you from an architectural perspective. You have to think about the whole picture. Like we all in this room, we have to think about it from a high level perspective. But in terms of how we go to market with the department, I mean, it needs to be real to that individual. So whoever would get up and talk at a department meeting about transforming to Agile, I would see whatever kind of presentation you could do to the masses, the vast majority of them would have no idea what was just stated in terms of how it changes their life each day. And it's too high level. Because when I laid all these findings, like you can't, each one of those would have a different implication depending on who it's coming from. And so,
and where we're at overall, modernization, I know there's a lot of chatter about why do I have to do this decision that who's running just get started and do stuff. Well, you can't do that because we're changing everything at one time. We think about, how the Winchester house. You got to think about the whole picture and the high level components and how they all fit together. And then you can start delivering. We're going to have on this one here.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what we're saying. Yeah, so we're saying exactly that. We need to understand what you guys are trying to accomplish, which teams you think are the most important to start with, and then we will, as you can see, it says train agents. That will be train you guys, right? The managers and executives, and then you start training the teams, and it's a just in time. So we train teams, and then we roll them onto a train, and they start to operate in an agile fashion, working together.
cost, there's all of that, but they still have all these obstacles around them too. So how do we address those?
And so I call those obstacles the operating model, like the rest of the factory. So they've got a space carved out on the floor where they can do what they want inside of their square. And once they step out of their square, they're in the rest of the factory. So it's understanding how much of a change do we want to impact on the factory, right? And then educating those folks as well, and then structuring them so that they can deliver their work in that manner, right? So part of this is not only teaching them, but also coaching them, right? Sitting with them, embedded, helping them work through the issues, helping them figure out how to get it done so that they can, again, try to be more focused and deliberate. So again, we're saying the exact same things that you guys are articulating, but we just haven't had enough time with you guys face to face to kind of figure out what that playbook would be.
So we definitely, we need that. We need that. How do we get that and how do we overcome the obstacles?
I think it needs to start with us. I think each of you guys that don't have fully Scrum proficient teams or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think it literally needs to go down to a granular level. What teams are ready? The teams that are ready, how do you get them started and what obstacles are they going to hit? What can we do in the near term to eliminate those obstacles? If we can't eliminate those obstacles, how long will it take and how do we keep teams from being frustrated? And then that gets aggregated up to every team we have. You know, some teams very quickly are relevant. Okay, probably ISTS doesn't fit. IS customer support. You know, so you eliminate people, which I know you guys already did. But I think each of you guys needs to identify. I almost think like just a big map. This team's in, this team's not for now, or when they're
wasn't coming on their radar.
Yeah, but then so that there's a picture of the whole department of who's involved, who's not involved. What can they do now? And what is it needing to work in a mixed mode environment? And, you know, anyway, that's where I think I don't think we can ask you know, another group like give us our implementation. I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
You got to keep the carved out to work on it.
Correct.
That's
well, then we can get help. You know, we can get help on how to train, but we first have to define our own plan of how we get from where we are now to where we need to be, and then we can definitely have outside help on this specific aspects of Agile, whether it's documenting the training, whether it's teaching us the pitfalls that other people have encountered, whatever it is, but we have to define where we want to go from here, where we want to end up in the steps to get there, because you can't just have a global program that goes to the whole department.
Yeah. So this was our, again, attempt at kind of what are the next steps we were trying to lay out for you guys. Again, translation scope workshop, this is a one-day activity. Define the drivers for changing the assets, define the transformation business statement, and strategic intent for the transformation. And so we were looking at you, Lori, Steve, Renee, Eric, Melanie, Alex, and Christian, right, as being involved to kind of help figure out what's the scope of the transformation, right? Because again, you said some teams are getting cut off. Okay.
I mean, these guys know what they need. I mean, each person needs to think about where their teams are today and the gaps between where they are now and where they want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then when all that gets typed up, we can actually talk about it. But we're not going to have a 10-hour day to like talk about it as a group because it won't be productive.
Okay.
Unless you guys disagree. I mean, you don't need me in there trying to decide, what our transformation vision is.
And so the reason we recommend offering this is because, again, we help lots of customers put these together. We know how to facilitate those workshops to make them productive. I mean, is it a lot of time in the room together? Yes, but it's also focused time, and we come out with a plan versus you doing it in 10 minutes every time you got a chance to over the course of your 2 weeks, right? I mean, that's the other way that you do it, and it's just not as effective, right? We also talked about, again, the strategy alignment workshop.
So we don't have a vision? Yeah, I mean, I thought we had a vision. I certainly sold a vision to the board and to Todd. And I took him a lot of money approved on a lot of people, so we don't have a vision. I'm a little concerned.
I don't think we have an agile. I think we have a vision of what we're gonna do, what we're trying to improve, what we're trying to modernize. I don't think we have an agile vision. We just have a bunch of teams to scrum. That's not an agile vision. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I'm gonna say, I don't know why you need an agile vision. Agile is a way to work. We want to work faster. We want to work in bite-sized chunks. So, I mean, I don't really, like, I don't know how hard it is to have.
I mean, if you think we're going the right path, we'll just continue the same path we're going. We'll just bring everybody in.
So we don't say that agile is a way to work. We say agile is a mindset. It's a
Okay,
philosophy.
so it's a mindset.
So, but again, in doing that, that's the part that's difficult to change, is the way people think. We're talking about 20, 30 years of software delivery experience of doing things a certain way. And now I'm asking you to do it differently. And if I don't have your support to ask me to do it differently, they're not going to do it differently.
Well, you know, I mean, like, I literally could say, I mean, I don't know what I need to do to start a business. We need to move faster. I mean, Pat's been doing it. How many years you been doing this now? 3 or 4? From when you started? I love the fact that I always, like, every time I turn around, I get another email. We just implemented a new
The other
release.
teams are picking up Scrum. So I think the big question is, do you use Scrum as an agile option versus waterfall? And then do you scale it? And at what point does it need to be scaled? Some teams that work together aren't going to exceed 100 people to deliver software, and maybe faith is overkill. Other teams, I'm not sure, could get that big.
Yeah, and again, it's a matter of going through the activities to understand what those are based off of value streams, right? Understanding the flow of value through the organization, understanding how my work as a developer contributes to the satisfaction of a product, which contributes to the satisfaction of a business objective, which contributes to the satisfaction of a customer. Because the feedback from that customer is going to be important to me as a developer in order to improve my product, to make sure the quality is in place. And so again, if you guys have it, that's fine. We are coming in to extract, elicit, make it all visible, bubble it all up to the top, and then help you carve it out into the things that make sense, and then support you as you deliver it. But we can't do it without having that insight. And so we come in and ask all of those questions. Yes, you guys have been doing strategy, you've been doing this, you've been leading, again, I'm a big Publix customer, so I mean, you got somebody who's happy right here, right? That's on the back end. So what we're trying to do is just understand all those aspects, because one big part about agility is transparency. And so transparency in making those things crystal clear, and they may be crystal clear word-wise, but apparently some people somewhere are not getting those messages. And so we're just saying, let's evaluate how you're getting those messages out, making sure that those messages are getting to the people that need to, so that they understand what they're supposed to do, because that's what represents the reinforcement of everything that we're trying to do. It's all tied into, there's a bundle, right? It's not just go and do the work. Too many times we get told to go and do the work, or we'll take the initiative to do the work, right? But again, that initiative isn't connected to what's going on with the greater organization. Is it adding value? Absolutely it is, right? That's why you guys see it and you say we should move to that. But let's make it a part of a concerted effort, not just a piecemeal effort. Again, we could do things that are different, and we could defer to your judgment on your organization, because this is your place. You know how it works. You guys have the relationships. The only recommendations I'm making are the recommendations that I've used in the past that have helped me to be successful transforming other organizations. And so that's, all of this stuff is coming from that. And if it doesn't make sense to you, I apologize. I could have too much jargon in it. I tried several times. I mean, I worked with these guys to try to make it make more sense so that it can resonate with you. But at the end of the day, I mean, we are here to make you successful. And the only way that I know how to do it is by, again, I used to be a business analyst. I'm trying to figure out the solution. In order to figure out the solution, I got to elicit all of the information. And so we need to do those interviews to kind of get that intel so that we can help you.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to imply. I definitely. you don't know exactly what is going to be shared. The approach that's being laid out right now is just not what I've found to be effective for myself in driving change in the past.
Okay.
And I think it is because while I'm a big advocate of top-down communication, I think that top-down communication has to be very specific to the individual in the room who's listening to it.
I agree.
When we start talking vision and strategy, it might sound pretty and we can have pretty pictures, but to that person, they're sitting there, it's just more words. They have no idea what it means to them and what's going to change when they walk out of that room. And when I kind of read what comes out of that, it doesn't sound like we're getting down to the nuts and bolts of what specific teams would do. And I think we could get there a lot faster. Like using, for example, the two-day alignment. I mean, my peers and my boss telling you what we need to do to be agile. I mean, how is that going to help you? It's just the way I look at it. We have to get more work done faster. I know that I want us to get more work done faster that supports the customer and supports the associate. So me, it just seems like more just like fluff over the nuts and bolts of what are we going to do to move faster.
And I would not be honest with you if I hadn't said I hadn't heard that before. Like I've heard an executive say, I've had someone say to me, hey, this feels textbook. It does feel textbook. It does feel fluff and it feels airy and it feels like a bunch of good kumbaya. Absolutely it does. And that's the whole point. It's supposed to be changing the mindset. And you start by introducing the new language, right? You start using different tones and you start to represent your ideas in a way that, again, are more holistic. And what are those ways?
I think when you start using words and trying to people are in a cynical, like, show me or I'll believe this when I see it type of attitude. But just from my own experience, I found until you have like results to point to, then people don't really buy into it. So it's all a product of our of our experiences and my experiences.
Yes, ma'am. I know. I completely understand, and I think Eric Pat's group is a great. If you say a case study that's internal, Pat's group or maybe some of the groups teams that Alex has, having that again, figuring out what's the messaging around it to be more specific, tie that to an approach. Hey, this is what these teams are doing. This is how we're going to get your team spun up. But again, going through those conversations to figure out what makes the most sense from your organization. And again, I've had people who said, I don't think I need to have these conversations. And we circle back later on and we have these conversations. And it's been a room with this many people in it. And, same person, people sitting in the room. All of the I'm just saying, I've had experiences where people don't feel like it's important. And eventually, is either I convinced them or they learn over time by seeing the examples. And that's part of it. Yeah.
It's very difficult to talk to a very large organization about what.
Yep, absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah, it seems like we now have some teams pick up on this. We want them to do it. We want to be agile and stay. We want to do that. We want to empower them to do that, help them be successful. We want to do that. To me, a more valuable, practical thing was talking to these teams that have already done it. Ask them what were all the hurdles and the obstacles. Put that on a piece of paper, and then we say, when we spin up these next set of teams, we know who they are. We know re-retirement's coming up. CQA, we know all these are coming up. You say, these are my 10 top obstacles. By talking to the people on the ground, let's get on a piece of paper and get a plan to knock these obstacles off, or at least mitigate them. So when my re-retirement team starts, I'm like, I get trained on safe. I know I'm just going to stand up. I know I need a different way to deploy. I know I need an engineer to spin up their systems as fast as they can. So I know like these 10 obstacles, here's how I'm going to mitigate that. So when this team starts, they don't feel the same pain that Alex is Eric Gilbertson has felt, Pat has felt. To me, that's a more practical approach, like that kind of workshop with the people that really know, and me telling me what I think. That's what I think. But if you've got me in a room for one day, I need a way to get my teams so they can be successful, not be as frustrated as these teams have been over the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
So, to me, that's what the rubber meets the road.
No, I
I
think,
think we get going.
and I think we discussed that. I think Jason brought that up. We were on the phone the other day. He was saying the same thing about getting those ground level teams. And again, we can go either way. So again, the approach that I was coming with was top down because I felt like you guys already have kind of ground up the grassroots. And the top down is that additional confirmation to the other folks that this is something that the organization supports, right? And then we also tossed out the idea of taking some time to build out your Agile University or whatever that might be, right? So that you can have, so Melanie does like training for IS right now, doing something where maybe she gets trained, you train a couple of trainers, and now you got people who could always be delivering training and do like a dojo, right? Where the teams come through the transformation versus the transformation coming to the organization, right? So there's all kinds of different ways that you can do this to again, be effective, figure out, what's the best use of your time, the people that you're working with. And again, all of that was, we were basing it, or going to base that off of understanding what you're trying to accomplish, right? What are you trying to accomplish? Because you don't want to get in the way of that as an organization.
These guys that are mitigating some of we can't hang on a dime. We sure can mitigate some of the understanding and having a plan on how we're going to attack them. We know as these teams kick off, what we want them to develop that way, if they can. And we know we can't send sprints out to the store every 2 weeks. We can't report 1,234 stores every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do it. We know that. So we have some constraints now too. And we're doing the best we can with Sims, and where we're delivering in bigger chunks than would be probably frowned upon from an Agile perspective. But we're bringing groups in the lab to look at these questions we've developed and get feedback from our store associates to do it. So we're trying to, in our world, implement that in a way that we can without having all these changes. Maybe I need to go retire or something because we should be deploying every 2 weeks. I don't think that we're every 6 weeks. I can't manage, 210,000 associates. Something every 2
Absolutely.
So we got to add a level of practicality.
Absolutely.
And tailor it to our groups and our business. Property form, you betcha. They want something every 4 weeks.
Right.
That works. Right. They want the same thing. The benefits department, I don't know. We'll have to work with them because they're, we got to work with them on the change. And we're talking to them about it. We've got their buy-in on how we're doing it. But it's a change on how we want. So we have to have the people that they trust on my team manage with that business there, how we're going to go about it.
Absolutely.
That's another thing you got to tailor yourself to the audience that you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And I apologize that this is more canned because we haven't had an opportunity to interact with you guys to extract and learn this information. But this is just kind of, again, what was the approach, kind of the best thing to do based off of what I'd heard in my past experiences. And so this is what we're presenting. But I've been saying all along to the project team, engagement team, that we're completely flexible, right? However you guys need to do it, again, whatever way makes the most sense because you understand your culture better than we do. We've only sat with you guys for 2 days, right? 2 days and some hours. So, again, this is just kind of a framework, straw man, and it's the things that we need to do, but we can always move around when we do them and how we do them. So these were just the next steps. I don't necessarily have to go through them because you guys have them in front of you. But again, it's doing the same thing. We're talking about selecting the people that we're going to transform. All of the things that you guys are saying are in these next steps. So, we're flexible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now I had we were planning to be here this week, and then you guys said, we couldn't pull some stuff together. I still have some availability if anyone of you has some time tomorrow or the next day, just 30 minutes. I mean, I'll drive over to start having some of the conversation that we were having today, pick up on them and try to, again, helping move things forward if you guys are open to it and if you have availability. So. All right. All right. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Hugo, you still there? He's gone now.